Hello, everyone. I'm just getting set up here. Hope you're all doing well. This is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm going to do some free live readings today. And take a look at the video description. Take a look at the pinned chat message to see how to request a free reading. I'll probably stream for no more than 2 hours. Aim to do about 10 free readings, approximately. We'll see how it goes. And so, hope you're all having a great weekend. I am drinking a black tea. It's a peach chrysanthemum tea. I'm going to have that to fortify me through my readings this afternoon. And hello to Maria. Hello to Joey Wong. Hello. Hi, Vanilla and Pie. Hi, April. Hi, Country Love Homestead. Hi, Starry Night. Hope all of you are doing wonderfully today. I'm going to be reading with my CBD Tarot de Marseille for YouTube. Let's burn some Palo Santo. This candle's almost done, but oh, maybe it is done. Let's see. I have another one. I have a whole box of them, in fact. Nope. Looks like it's going to work. Fire is firing. Let's just let that burn a second. All right. All right, so I've got my deck smudged. I'll start forming a list now. And as per usual, I will go in order of who requested first in the chat. All right, let's see. Okay, I think I have everybody. So here's the list I've got. 8 folks on it. Maria Scorpio, Wong Joey, Jean, Vanilla and Pie, April M7, Country Love, Starry Night, and Diamond Girl. That's the list as I saw it. Please let me know if I made a mistake. And you know what? I think let's go through the way it works for those of you who might be new. I think at least 1 or 2 of you are new. So I've got my list here. First come, first serve. I'll start with number 1. Call their name. They will be invited to ask their question in the chat. Let us know they're here. If they are here, I will read for them. If they are not here, I'll call their name 3 times. Okay. After the 3rd time, if I don't hear anything, I will skip over them and go to the next person. So you do need to be here to receive your reading. Okay. So I think what I'll do, go ahead and close the list at this point. Let me unpin this message in a new one. All right, I'll pin that. And then depending on how things go, maybe I'll reopen later on. Okay, let me do a little preliminary shuffling of these cards. And while I'm doing that, I should give my disclaimer, which is that, of course, these readings are for entertainment purposes only. You are responsible for making your own decisions. I'm not here to tell you what to do. You should seek out appropriate advice from professionals in the event that you need that advice. I am not a professional. I'm not claiming to be any kind of professional. All right, so I think I've got the business stuff out of the way. So we will start with Maria Scorpio. And I may as well let you all know that I am planning to do some traveling beginning tomorrow. So my live stream schedule may be more disjointed and less regular than it has been in the last several months. I'll be traveling for about 6 weeks. And so I'm hoping to be able to live stream travel, but it may not always be Sunday afternoon like it has been in the past. So I just wanted to let you all know that, so that if you are wondering where I went, I'm going to be visiting family, and I have a birthday coming up, and I'm excited to celebrate that, and going to be spending that traveling. So, all right. So let's see. I think Maria posted her question earlier. Is that right? Yes. So Maria asked, I'm wondering, is there a chance for me and my ex, Philip, together? And then if so, when? Okay. Let's see. Is there a chance for Maria and Philip to get back together? And if so, when? Okay. Oop. We've got a jumper. Is there a chance for Maria and Philip to get back together? And if so, when? I'm very cautious about jumpers. Those of you who've been watching the channel for a while know that it's very rare for me to have a jumper because I'm very particular about how I shuffle. And but this one was very insistent. This was a very insistent card, and could not be stopped. And so I think that's meaningful because I think that anything that happens during the divination session is meaningful. And so I'm leaving this one out because it was so insistent. And it's, of course, the Page of Cups. All right. So we're going to leave that out. And we'll interpret it as a card which is looking on at the rest of what's happening that I'm about to lay out. Right. So I don't think on its own it has a whole lot of meaning, although the fact that it's from the Suit of Cups and that we're doing a relationship reading is potentially auspicious. Okay, so let's pull 3 cards for the question. 3 Swords, the Star, and the Page of Coins, with another page looking on, right? Okay, so the question, just to repeat it, is there a chance for Maria and Philip to get back together, right? This is they've broken up, and the question is there any chance that these two people could get back together? And so, unless there's a good reason not to, 3 Swords in the past, this something going wrong. This is likely the breakup, right, which has occurred. Annoyances can be heartbreak with the 3 of Swords. So this is validating what the querent already knows, right? That things went poorly in this relationship in the past, right? Then we've got 2 people. Okay, one of them looks like a young woman who is pouring water, liquid, right, out of these vessels, in the sense that she's open, she's giving. We notice, of course, in the image, she's not wearing anything. So she's potentially vulnerable as well. She's also facing to the left, meaning that she's not necessarily able to see the 3rd card, which is another person, Page of Coins, which looks indeed like a young man who is indeed looking in her direction, or at least facing her direction, although it's ambiguous, I think, as to whether or not his eye line is actually going to her. It is, he's facing to the left, which is where she is, but there's this coin which may be distracting him or blocking his vision. See that? We can, think of a coin is shiny, it catches the light, it's interesting, it's valuable. It can even reflect a surface like a mirror, right? You could imagine that he's perhaps looking at his own reflection or his cell phone or something like that, right? And so even though he's facing her direction, he may be distracted by something which is preventing him from actually seeing her, right? So this specific question again is there a chance for these 2 to get back together? And I think seeing the 2 figures appear at all suggests that yes, indeed, there is a chance, right? But we would also have to think about what would have to happen in order for that to come to be. Yes? And so one thing I think that would need to happen is the the woman who has got to be Maria, of course, right? Would reorient herself, perhaps be guided by the star more in this other person's direction, because there's a sense in which she's so busy giving of herself, perhaps giving too much or obsessively, not facing the right way. That's one thing. But then on the other hand, this page, I think, is distracted by something else. And so he would need to remove that distraction in order for these two to have their eyes meet, right? What we two figures whose gazes meet one another. We do have the two figures, so we're like halfway there, right? But their gazes don't meet. They're not facing each other. They're sort of halfway facing each other, but one is distracted. They're maybe both kind of distracted. Him by the coin, and her by the vessels full of water, right? So the direct answer to the question is yes. I'd say that there is a chance, but both of these people would need to make some changes in order for it to happen, right? Which brings me to this jumper, the Page of Cups that came out at us, right? So the Page of Cups is significant here because the Page of Cups suggests a newness in a relationship, but also potentially a kind of lack of maturity and immaturity, right, in interrelational dynamics. The Page of Cups is someone who has not yet figured out their feelings, right? So they can be moody, their emotions can vacillate very wildly. They don't have control over their emotions. Sometimes their emotions are too deep and sometimes they're too shallow, right? This is someone who still has a lot to learn about how to develop a mature emotional relationship, okay? And so I think this card is giving us two things. One, it's suggesting concrete ways that these figures could change their behavior or direct their behavior so as to make a reconciliation possible. That's one thing. And two, I think it could be pointing towards the timing as well, because there was a follow-up question in the main question, which is there a chance? And then if so, when, right? And so the timing with the Page of Cups could indicate as soon as summer, because I associate the Suit of Cups with the summer, right? But I suspect that more accurately, it's sort of suggesting like that a reconciliation is possible when both parties in the relationship are ready to learn, because pages are all about learning, right? Being students of something, learn how to be in a relationship, right? In other words, the reconciliation has a chance when both parties are prepared to be students of love, right? When they're ready to put in the work that it takes, the diligent effort that it takes to learn how to be a good partner. Okay? So I'm going to take a peek in the chat now, because I think, yes, there is a chance with a big if, right, as to when it could happen. All right. You say there was a lot of fighting. Well, that's the swords. He's distracted by chatting with other women. Oh my. Well, that, I often associate the suit of coins with social interactions and often social media nowadays, right? And so this looks like a phone to me. I mean, it doesn't actually resemble a phone, but staring at it, and if you think of the way that the coin reflects light and the way that our phones project light, it's reminding me of a phone, right? So is there a possibility? Yes, but some changes would need to be, and um, it is a destiny, fate kind of a thing where it's going to happen. Which is why saying like, "Oh, it's definitely happening in the summer," for example, I feel like is not a particularly satisfying answer, because I think when we see court cards show up like this, it suggests that these people have agency. And so it can happen if they want it to happen and if they act in such a way that they cause it to happen, right? As opposed to saying everything is already decided and we just have to look up like the date for when it'll happen. So here, I don't think that's the case, right? Like it can happen if both parties are willing to figure out how to make it happen, right? But definitely is a chance, given that we see the court card, well, the court card and then the star representing another person here. You asked in the chat, could it be a new person? And it could be. A way of reading the court cards is as other people, of course. So, based on your question that there's Philip and there's you, I'm taking these to be you and Philip. But, we had this jumper, right? And so we could examine this. I'm you, Maria. But we could think about the possibility that rather than the jumper representing timing or like an underlying tone for the reading, it could represent that there's another person who sort of as a surprise could be jumping out. And so in that case, both of these would represent fairly young people. They're both pages, right? And so young people who are not well established yet, or who may be kind of immature if they're not actually young, right? Someone can be 50 years old and represented by a page if they're still an immature kind of person, right? So it's more about the personality than the number of years that they've got under their belt, right? If we were to differentiate them beyond being pages, the page of coins, this is often a student, right? Or someone who's like a very young business person or entrepreneur, right? And who's much more practical than the Page of Cups, right? This is someone who's interested in getting their hands on some money, but they probably don't have a lot right now, right? Whereas the Page of Cups, this is more like a dreamer, right? This is someone who's interested in following their dream, no matter what that dream might be, who, as I said, can sometimes be kind of moody because they don't have control over all of their emotions yet. And that can be problematic. And there's someone who tends to sort of go with the flow of things, including their own emotions, as opposed to someone who's interested in pursuing more practical undertakings. The Page of Cups would be romantic, though, right? So you say that Philip is immature. I would wonder, like, does he have a profession? Um, right? Like, is he an artist or is he a student or is he does he work in a business? Or is he more interested in creative pursuits? That could help us determine whether or not um, one of these cards could be him or someone else. But those are the kinds of questions I would ask, right? Because they're both pages, so they're both kind of immature. So in that sense, they could. This one, I would say, Page of Coins is likely referring to him, and then the Page of Cups referring to the general mood of the whole spread, right? And timing. But there is a way of reading this spread as this Page of Cups, if this is Philip, this being, a young romantic dreamer who surprisingly shows up in your life, who is not Philip. Okay, we better move on to the next person. Who is Wong Joey. So Wong Joey, if you are here, please let us know. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free live readings today. My list is closed right at the moment. I might open it later, depending on if I have more time. And if I'm not able to read for you today, I'd be happy to read for you in a future live stream. I'm also available for paid private readings, and you can check out the Linktree link in the video description if you would like to look. So welcome to email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. Okay, and it looks like Wong Joey is interested in a general reading. So I will do general readings. I do find that I can be a lot more precise if we can narrow it down a little. And so if you want to, right, like if you just want me to pull 3 cards and see what comes up, I will do that. But if we can narrow it down into, like, are you curious about money, work, love, or some conflict that those 4 areas tend to cover most things, but we can go general too. It's just that I find if I have some kind of context to hold on to, then I can give a better reading. Okay, so we'll just pull 3. And we'll see what we get. And hi, New Deal, New Me. I'm not doing paid readings today on the live stream, but I do offer paid private readings. And if you check out the Linktree link in the video description, you can see more info about those. You can also email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. Okay, so we're doing a general reading for Wong Joey. We don't have a question. Let's see what we get. 3 coins, 9 coins, 2 coins. Well, this is obviously about money because it's coins all the way down. From left to right, we see not enough money to start, right? 4 is a stable number, right? If you think of 4 legs on a chair or on a desk or something, it's enough to sort of keep something sturdy. And 3 is just less than that, right? So there may be a sense of like maybe your income is growing, but it's not quite enough, right? Like it's almost there, but not quite. Yes. And then a huge change for the better, right? Like maybe there's a payday or a check coming in that you didn't know that you were going to be getting, and everything is fantastic with your financial life. In some decks, the 9 of coins represents luxury, right? So maybe you have enough money to buy that item that you've wanted to get for a while. But then what happens? 2 coins, even fewer than you started off with, right? And so, with no context at all, reading only the coins here and looking at the numbers 3, 9, 2, the sort of general message I would give you is if you see more money coming in than you had anticipated, don't spend it all. Save that, because you'll end up really having to juggle later on, and you'll feel like you have even less than you started with, right? So be careful with your finances, I think, is the general message at the moment for you, Joey Wong. Yeah, so 3 is you've almost got enough. 9's, I think about 9 is a lot. It's not 10, but it's almost 10, right? That's all. It's like you're attaining funds 3 times as many as you had to begin with, right? But then if we think, well, then sometimes when you have a lot of something, there's an anxiety or nervousness about, well, what do I do with it all, right? I've got too much. I better do something with it. And the tension here is that what you do with it leaves you sort of worse off than you were before. And so be cautious, be prudent, be careful with how you're spending money as it comes in the near future. And if we want to think about timing, I read coins as spring, right? And we've got all coins here. And so I would think about, we're in spring now. So it's talking about what's happening in the pretty immediate future for you. I don't think we're talking about the end of the year. We're talking about like what's happening now. Yeah, so if you've been spending a lot on food, especially auto and health insurance, and you're looking for a new job with more pay, one thing I think of is if you get a job with more pay, maybe look into like, are there any hidden costs with it, right? Like maybe you have to commute more and that costs gas money, or you have to pay for parking or something that might not balance out with the increase in income you're getting, right? And so I would just advise caution about money going, which I suppose in some sense that's always true, right? Like I would never tell someone, oh, you should just frivolously spend everything you have, right? And so But seeing these specific cards, I can't help but make the same statement: is the money is not quite enough. It's okay, but it's not quite enough, and then it becomes great. But the tension here is between the 9 and the 2 of coins, where what happens when there's this change for the better, but then something happens where it looks like you're on this windy path where you have even fewer than you started with. So I guess something else I could think about, which I didn't point out, but is an interesting detail here, which would be these 2 coins are bigger coins than the rest of the coins, right? So we could think about investing something a little bit so that it grows, right? Like maybe you take 9 of your coins, take 2 of the 9, so 2/9 of your income, right? And invest it in something so that they become 2 really big coins instead of little coins, right? That might be a suggestion to consider, is figure out how you can turn a couple into really big coins instead of little coins, right? By like investing them in something so they would grow, like, I don't know, or a CD or whatever it is that you might use. Okay, so that's my general Joey, and it's all about money there. It's all about what you're doing with your finances in the immediate future. You're very welcome. That brings us to Jean. If you're here, Jean, it's your turn. All right. So Jean wants to know about this person I's feelings and next actions. Oh, I'm a Taurus. I'm a Taurus on the cusp of Gemini. And my channel name came from my doing a reading, asking the cards what I should name my tarot business. And the Hermit came up. And that's where I got the name. Right on the cusp of Gemini. All right, here we go for Jean. Thank you for the happy birthday. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see for Jean. What are I's feelings and next actions? Page of Batons. King of Batons. Aha. And the Sun. Well, what an interesting little spread. So An I. I'm trying to determine who the court cards refer to. And so would you say that this person I could be described as a king of batons? Are they a man of action? Are they um are they a king? Is this an adult, like grown up, or is this not yet a king? Because the reason I ask is he definitely is. Okay, great. All right. So in that case, if he's the king of batons, we can read the page as being a message or his thoughts, right? I often think about that, and if you just think about the way in which a page is a kind of messenger, right, who does the bidding or carries out the agency of the kings and the queens, right, or maybe the knights. So if he's here being the king, then what we see here with the page is that there is a message or thoughts about an action which are being prepared to happen, right? And I say being prepared to happen because it's on the left side of the king, right? Like he's thinking about how he's going to act. I associate especially the suit of batons with action, with doing things, building things, taking action. So he is thinking about potentially sending a message, right? And acting towards you. And I say that because what are they both looking at? And of course, it's the Sun card, where this is the card, even more, especially more than the Lovers card in the Tarot de Marseille, that I associate with a strong, symmetrical, balanced, like healthy relationship. Okay. Because we've got the two figures and they're almost like twins in the sense that they're equal to one another, right? They are, one of them is perhaps leading the other one, showing them the path forward, but they're equal to one another. This is very much a card of friendship and warmth, and often I would say is the best card that you want in a relationship reading, right? As opposed to the Lovers, especially in the Tarot de Marseille, where there's three figures on it and it's very ambiguous and it tends to be more about choice or ambivalence, right? But here, there's not a choice to be made. There's not ambivalence. There are two people who are happily out under the sun together, right? So the question, what are his thoughts and no, you didn't say thoughts. You said feelings and actions towards you. I think that he's he's thinking about like sending a message, a warm message that would put the two of you like outside together, in the sun together, if that makes sense. We've got the two figures sort of behind or this wall or in front of this wall, this brick wall. And so we can think about the two of them sort of being in a protected place together, but they're under the sun, so they're outdoors. So a warm, protective kind of message that brings the two of you closer. Now let me look at this another moment, because let me see where I can find the tension, because it's positive that I want to find where is some tension here. The first place I note is on the King of Batons. His baton is pointed, and this point is about to be jammed in his heel, right? Like if he's not careful, he will slip and stab himself in the foot. So if there is a tension here, or like something that could go wrong or something to watch out for, It could be that he might sort of misstep in some way or stab himself in the foot uh, in a way that could delay things. If you think about, if he were to hurt his foot, it would take him longer sort of walking to get towards you, right? It would be a kind of delay or a complication in things. But that's not certain. It's just, whenever I'm reading, I'm looking if the reading is so positive, like this is so positive, I want to find the tension, and I think that's where I'd find it, right? That if he's not careful, he could complicate things a little bit. He's thinking about you, and he's thinking about acting so as to bring the two of you close together in a warm, happy kind of way. The two of you under the sun behind the brick wall. That's seeing this card in the last position is excellent. In a relationship reading, especially. A beach date? Sure. Yeah. Husband and a father a lot lately. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have been reading the sun as the two of you, right? Like, in other words, he sort of becomes one of these two figures, and then you are the other. But they do look like children, right? And if you think of the Wright Smith version of the card, it's a card often, that does depict a child, right? So the other thing, given that context, we could think about the way that the sun provides clarity. If we think about the progression of the major arcana, and we have the moon before it, and with the moon, things are dark, the path is unclear, things are distorted, reflection, that kind of thing. But then the sun comes out and everything is clear. We can see everything. The good and the bad, potentially, although here I don't necessarily see anything bad. But perhaps there's some clarity on, if he's talking about wanting children, maybe what he's thinking is that he's getting some clarity, he's getting some vision about how he feels about kids. Also think about kids with the Page of Batons. I was reading it earlier as a messenger, or a message, or his thoughts, right? But the Page of Batons could be the child of the King of Batons, right? So in that case, we could read his potential child, assuming he doesn't have one, right? Here, and then he's thinking about how does that happen, right? A close, symmetrical, close, warm relationship with another person, right? So we could read the king here becoming, maybe shrinking down a little bit so as to be closer to the other person. And the motivation for that is the son or daughter, right? Because page can go, the gender of the page, I think, is sort of not important. Yeah, let's look at the surprise card. 6 coins is a surprise card, and so that makes me think of sending a message again, right? Like financial with the coins. With sixes, I think of paths or choices, options that are available to a person, right? To him in this case. The coins, it's what is the path that is valuable? What is the path that is important? If he's responsible and a protector and have kids, he would need money for that. Anyone would. And so underlying all this, there may be a financial component to his actions that he's going to take towards you, right? Like maybe he's waiting for a particular, I don't know, like a check to come in or a contract to be issued that would give him a particular financial standing. That could be playing a role, right? But given that it's the surprise card, it's like an underlying concern, right? As opposed to the main concern, money. But he's likely thinking about money because he needs it to take care of these other things that he needs to take care of. Well, then perhaps, so he makes a lot of money but thinks it's not enough. So it's also possible then that he's distracted, that he's getting clarity he really values, and maybe he's struggling with understanding that there's never enough money, but that it want to do something that is more important than money, right? Like maybe have a family. You just have to do it, right? Because if you keep waiting until you're ready, it might just not ever happen, right? And so that tension could be informing what's happening here, and could also then refer to his stabbing himself in the foot, right? There may be financial considerations which he's focused on, which are, how do I say this the right way? Like delaying him, right? Slowing things down. Yeah. Yeah, I can see if he's the King of Batons, he wants to be the, right? I think of the King of Batons as he's the entrepreneur, he's the man of work, the businessman, and that's not like that's an for him of his identity, of who he is. Okay, so that was for Jean, and next we have Vanilla and Pie. If you are here, Vanilla and Pie, let us know. And welcome to anyone else who might be joining. I am Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, doing some free live readings today. The list is closed at the moment. I may reopen it later, depending on how the rest of the list goes. And the question from Vanilla and Pie is... Okay, what's going to be D, the person D, who I think is an Aquarius, what are their next feelings and actions? Pie, okay. And April, it looks like your reading is after this one, after Vanilla and Pie. And Stormborn, no, I think The list is closed. I closed it after 8. I might reopen it depending on how the rest of the live stream goes. Okay, so for Vanilla and Pie, this person D, what are his next feelings and actions towards Vanilla and Pie? Okay, let's see. 4 coins. 4 batons. 7 batons. Okay, so you asked specifically about his feelings and actions towards you in love. So the first thing I would look for, if we're thinking about love, we would like to see cards that represent love, right? Like any of the cups cards, well, most of the cups cards, some of them, it would depend. People cards, like court cards facing each other, right? Maybe the sun card, that kind of thing. What we see instead are more practical kinds of cards that suggest a more intellectual relationship or a social relationship and less of a romantic one, right? And we can look at the surprise card and see if there's maybe something bubbling under the surface that isn't totally conscious or present yet. But at first look, there's much more of a sense of like wanting to be an intellectual partner, right? Like wanting to have a stable relationship of things that you value together, right? With the 4 of coins, we can think about a stable mind, right? Or having similar things that you both care about that are important to you, like similar interests, right? With the 4 of batons, we can think about a stable social relationship. I think of batons as the social suit. If you think about like with the history of the tarot, think of these like polo batons that you would use like to play a game with. You compete and you cooperate with them. Maybe you build things, like you build relationships, but it's more of a friendship or an acquaintanceship, and less of a like I'm head over heels in love with you kind of thing, right? And so the 2 4s that we see to start suggests a lot of stability, security, which is great. The 4s also can indicate a kind of stodginess, an unwillingness to change, things staying the same, right? And so seeing 2 4s is significant because it suggests like however things are, that's how they stay. Okay. We do have the 7 of batons over here, and so we'll want to say something about that in a moment. But the general sense before we get to that card is like keeping things how they are now, which would be a kind of transactional relationship, which is negotiated and that is more about a friendship or being acquaintances or social rather than in love. Okay. So that's the first 2 cards. The 7 suggests that there's a challenge. With sixes, I think of paths, like channels, things moving. With sevens, you have an obstacle in the path, right? And so we've got something maybe changing, but changing in a way that it presents an obstacle that that somebody has to work through, right? Like there's a bump in the road and you have to figure out how you're going to get over it, that kind of a thing. So that's what you're up against, is that things are staying the way they are now and a challenge is coming which can upset things for good or for bad. Right? Like seeing the 2 4s suggests, well, this isn't growing. It's not shrinking, but it's not growing either. It's just what it is. The 7 is going to upset things, right? The challenge, the social challenge that's upcoming is going to upset things, which could then open the door to growth, or depending on how that challenge is resolved, could sort of knock things down, right? So I think we should look at the surprise card and see what that is. It's the 7 of Cups. So we've got 2 4s and 2 7s. The 7 of Cups is a surprise card, meaning it's the card that's underneath, hidden, sort of off to the side, in the margins, right? Which doesn't mean it's not important. It can even sometimes be more important. It's just that it's not the thing that people are focused on right now. And with it being the 7 of Cups, this is a troubled heart, right? So on the surface, there's a sense of him feeling that your relationship is one of being friends or acquaintances or having similar interests, and it's not really changing, although maybe you have an obstacle present. But underneath all of that, we've got cups and 7 of them. So his heart is uneasy. His heart is troubled. It's not just a question of a practical relationship. There is a deep emotional feeling that is buried under there that is that he is being challenged to work through with regard specifically to you, because of course that's what the question was about. So your question is, what were his feelings and actions towards you? What are his next feelings and actions towards you? And I'd say his feelings on the surface are about like keeping things the same, and then maybe trying to figure out how to work through some of the practical social obstacles you might have. But underneath that, like, he does feel some type of way, and he's trying to figure out what to do about that. It may even be, because this is the surprise card, meaning it's the card at the bottom of the cut deck, it can suggest something that he's not even totally aware of, right? So his uneasy feelings or troubled heart towards you may not be something that he totally knows is impacting his own behavior. Right? Like he might feel bad and not even totally know why, if he hasn't worked through the feelings he has for you that ended the relationship. Okay, so that was Vanilla and Pie's reading. Update us. I'd love to hear. All right, and then April, it's your turn, and we've already got the question. Fantastic. You're welcome, Vanilla and Pie. And so here's the list at the moment. We're going to do April's reading right next, and then Country Love, followed by Starry Night, and then Diamond Girl. I'm glad you like my writing. Okay, so April wants to know, why does Yarrow watch me? What are her intentions? Okay, why does Yarrow watch April? What are her intentions? Let's see, 3 cards. Popes. 4 batons. Ace of batons. And the Popes is looking at something, and so we're going to want to check the surprise card and see what that is. But we'll do that in a moment. Let's look at the first 3 that showed up first. So, why does Yarrow watch you? And then the answer is first, the Popes. Well, if Yarrow is showing up as the Popes, we can look at what the figure on the card is doing. And of course, most importantly, she's got a book, right? So what is she doing with the book? Well, she's writing, perhaps, keeping a record, keeping track. Maybe if she's a tarot reader, I would say doing readings, right? Or if not tarot, then some other form of divination, right? So there could be of that going on, much in the way that indeed, you are asking for me to read about her. Could the opposite could be happening? Her having people read on you, or her doing readings herself if she reads the cards herself. The Popes is interested in learning, I would say, right? Like this is one of my favorite cards in the deck, because she is the kind of person who doesn't need someone else to validate her own belief system. She can do that on her own, right? So she's the sort of person who often will reject culturally held beliefs certainly pertaining to religion. That's the most obvious if you think about the Popess and then the Pope in the tarot deck. Or in the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's the High Priestess and Hierophant, right? But we're using the Marseille here. And she doesn't, very much unlike the Pope, she doesn't need an institution or an organization or a set of cultural beliefs to guide her. She can do it on her own, right? So I will say there's nothing immediately to here to suggest maliciousness. If that is implied in your question at all about, like, is she out to get you, or does she have bad ill will towards you, or anything like that? I don't see that, although we will look at the surprise card, and that could shade or color the reading a little bit. But, the High Priestess is observing things, figuring things out, keeping a record. Often I think she's just curious. If we think about the other two cards that show up, they're batons. And so it could be that she's interested in building a connection with you, because I think of batons as I said earlier, the social suit, right? So with batons, you can think about competing, but also cooperating, right? Like if you're on the same team, you cooperate. If you're on opposite teams, then you're competing, that kind of thing. There could be a sense too of, if things between you are kind of blocked, right? Like if your friendship or relationship isn't going anywhere, or if it's stuck in some way, there could be a feeling of want to knock that all down, to start over, take the opportunity, take the chance to sort of start the friendship again or the relationship again. I say friendship because, it's not the Ace of Cups, it's the Ace of Batons, which suggests more of a social relationship than a romantic one. But decreasing the batons from 4, where maybe it's kind of boring, things are stuck, it's stodgy, nothing's changing, it's a big X, like a block, breaking that down so that you've got just the one, and maybe you could build things differently or in a new way in the future going forward, right? So maybe she's watching you or observing you and keeping a record of what she sees to figure out how she can start over in being like a friend to you. Let's look at the surprise card. Oh, there's a glare there. All right. It's the Knight of Coins. So we've got another person card here. Knight of Coins, developing an interest. Like, this very well could be you. I suspect that it is your question, right? We know that she's watching you, right? And so then the Knight of Coins is sort of indicating to us what she sees as she watches you. And so she sees you as someone who's developing themselves in a way that interests them, right? So this could, of course, be financial, although I don't know that necessarily plays into it here, unless you think that there's some context in which your ability to improve your financial situation would interest her, right? Maybe that is true. But otherwise, I would think of the coin as more of like what you value, what interests you, the things that you care about, what's important to you, right? And so she may be looking or watching, as you put it, watching you to see what it is that you value so that she can take notes on that, keep a record of that, with the hope of shaking things up or shaking things down so that the block that's there allows for a new beginning. Now, I will say, I don't write off necessarily anything that indicates a romantic interest, which doesn't mean it isn't there, because we're only looking at 3 or 4 cards right today for each of these questions, and so it's a very beginning kind of reading. We could go deeper in a longer session. It seems like right now the interest is more about creating a link with you than it is about starting a big romantic relationship, if that makes sense. Right? For that, we would want to see some cups, something more about emotions or feelings. This seems to be more about keeping track of what you care about so that the barrier can be lowered and there's a spark that could then later be ignited. Okay, so that was for April M7, which means that Country Love is next on the list. You're welcome, April. Yeah, I think she's watching you to see what to see like what interests you, what if you see the way that the knight is staring so intently at that coin. And then also maybe we could say where you're going, because of course the figure's on a horse, and so they're clearly moving somewhere, right? Another way we could think of it, as I look at the details a little more, could be that she's watching you to see if you're going to move towards her in any way, right? And I also can't help but notice the rhyme between, even though this is the Knight of Coins, the Knight of Coins here is holding a green rod, and then we see the green rod show up over here again. And so there could be a way in which she is watching you to see if you are going to do anything to light that spark, right? Like that you might be the one with the rod, so to speak. The rod as an offering for a relationship in a friendship acquaintance kind of sense, as opposed to a romantic sense, because that would be more cups. Well, and if you're interested in a career in finance, I don't know anything about this person. I'm just reading cards, right? But there is a possibility that she is interested in the fact that you're interested in money, right? That could be motivating why she's watching you. It could, right? Not that there's necessarily anything underhanded in that, but your money could motivate why she's paying attention to you. So next we will read for Country Love Homestead. And the question is, DH and I had a chat and spent some time together recently, How did this affect our connection? All right. Great question. All right. DH and Country Love Homestead had a chat and spent some time together recently. How did this affect their connection? Here we go. We'll lay down 3 cards. 2 of batons. 3 coins. Judgment. Interesting. So especially the last card. So 2 batons. You're each contributing towards laying down the foundation, we might say, of this connection, right? 2, it's symmetrical. You lay down one increment of effort and the other person, DH, lays down, and it's very much at the beginning, it sounds like, the beginning of something, because it's such a low number, right? But the symmetry is good there. If we think about building a relationship, building a connection, laying down the foundations of it. 3 coins suggest then that it's growing as something valuable, because of course coins represent value, right? And 3s I think of as growth and something that is not yet stable, right? That would be at least a 4, but something that is approaching being stable. And with the 3 coins, I can think too of your growing interest or importance to one another. We could think about a way in which, if each of these coins represents each of you, here's you and here's DH, that there's a 3rd coin, which is your shared interests, right? Like the 2 of you together are generating more value. In this recent talk or hangout that you had. And then we get, so those are those. The judgment card is really interesting to me because it suggests other people. So where were you when you spent time together recently? Were you out in public? That's one question that I have, because there's a sense here of you were at his place. All right. So if you look at the card, judgment card, we've got the 3 people down here, and then we've got the angel up there. And so we can think about the way in which the trumpet that the angel is blowing has got to be very loud, right? To wake these people up. We can think of them, especially the blue one here, as potentially coming back from the dead. If it's Judgment Day, the dead are rising again. So with this card, we can think that something which maybe at one time was dead is coming alive again. right? That they're rising up out of the ground where there was a feeling like, nope, this is over, this is ended. But in the spending of time together that you had recently, it's like, wait, this is coming back. And I would wonder too if, because of the trumpet, if there was like music involved, like I wouldn't be at all surprised if there was like a shared interest, growing interest in music, uh, that could be reviving something, right? If that makes sense. So that's what I see with the Judgment coming back, right? Like the inking something up that wasn't there before. Yeah. Okay. So if you've been that is a big part of is moving things forward, right? It is happening slowly, and I say slow because 2 to 3 is slow, right? But it is increasing, right? It's not like we have a descending order of numbers. The numbers are going up. It's just that they're going slow. Happened in this time you spent together recently was you worked on building your relationship, growing your interests with one another, and it reached a point, or is reaching a point, where um, it may have seemed sort of dead and buried, but is coming back again. And I think due in a large part through sound, through shared interest in music. Yeah, I think slow is best. And there's nothing wrong with slow. Slow and steady wins the race, right? Um, yeah, I don't see any problem with slow. Why don't we look at the surprise card? So it's interesting that when I say slow and then the chariot comes up, because the chariot can be fast. Um, so the surprise card is the chariot, which, we can think about, well, it moves, right? And those pretty quickly. Um, Given that it's the surprise card, this is something that's like under the surface. So there could be maybe unknown sense of wanting to get things going uh, more quickly. The other thing we could think about, in which the charioteer armor, right? You can see there's armor, and so there can be an element of defensiveness with the charioteer, right? Like, um, this person may not be totally comfortable letting people in and being vulnerable and that kind of thing. And so it might be like they want to move faster, but it's going so slow because they're a little cautious of being vulnerable with another person. So that would be something to consider. One other thing that the Chariot can suggest is, if we consider the detail on the card, that the Charioteer doesn't actually hold the reins. The Charioteer may not have as much control as he thinks about where this chariot's going. The horses can go left, they can go right, they can sort of take things where they want, and it's ambiguous as to whether or not the charioteer gets to decide where things go. And so there could be a sense too of like, where is this going, right? Like a little bit of, I want to be in control, and yet am I in control? He may be feeling some of that, relationship grows as you share interests, as you start, where is it going, right? And what will it require? Like, is he going to have to take his armor off, and is he going to be comfortable with that? You're welcome, Country Love Homestead. Yeah, I think the images on the cards are super important. I think the deck you choose is important, and looking at those little details are, like, otherwise, why illustrate the cards at all? We could just take pieces of paper, 3 coins on it. You know, I think the illustrations are very important. Okay, so next up we have Starry Night. Okay, it's a career question. What would help me decide on a career? Okay, so a couple ways we could take this. One would be, do you have some careers in mind? Because, like, if you have a couple you're trying to choose from, or a couple fields, we could lay cards for. Or if you have no idea at all, if you're like, I have no idea what to do with my career, then we could just pull 3 cards and see, like, what kind of career do these cards suggest. But if you already have some in mind, if you're like, I don't know, should I go to law school or be a teacher, right? Then we could, like, lay 3 cards for each option and compare them. But if you don't already have some idea, then we could just lay a set of 3 and something. Do you have any careers that you're considering? You don't. Okay. So then why don't we, instead of looking at a specific career, we could just say, the question you asked wasn't what should your career be? You asked what would help you decide on a career. So I know what we're going to do. We're going to lay 3 cards out that indicate your current situation with regard to how you think and feel about your career. And then we'll lay 1 on top and 1 on bottom to make a cross. And those cards will give you advice about what you should do, or what attitude you should take in order to help you figure out what the best career option for you. This is a spread I use a lot for myself when I'm trying to decide how to act. You say, no, I know how I think and feel maybe you could share that. So like, what method should you use to figure out what career you want to pursue? You like a lot of different things. Okay. All right. All right. So what would help you find your career path really quickly? Let's see. 10 batons. 10 cups. 6 cups. Okay, so the things to consider are how much effort you're going to put into it, and is it something that you really truly, right? So first thing I note when we're thinking about, there's no money here, right? And the question is, what method would help you find a career path really quickly? And seeing no coins suggests, well, the primary concern wouldn't be financial, right? The primary concern would be, is there an equal balance between the work you're doing, that's the batons, and how much you love it, that's the cups, right? 10 to 10. And then the path you take, sixes are paths, is doing the thing that would make you feel genuinely fulfilled in your heart, right? So that's the method, is balance, thinking about what career would you do that would balance the work you're doing or would be doing with what you actually love, and then follow that. Right? So like I would say, ask yourself, what do I love to do the most? And that's the channel that you should follow. We could sum it up as like, do what you love and the money will follow. That kind of, in other words, like if you have one option, one that you feel is going to pay well, but you're going to hate it, that's not it. Yes, what you love to do the most. And if you pause the video for a moment, it'll buffer. And then if you start it, they'll lag, but then it can get rid of the glitchiness. 10 batons also suggests like this is a lot of work. 10 batons is the most work you can imagine, right? But you won't mind doing all of that work or being under all of that pressure if it's something that you really truly love. Right? It's like, what is the saying? Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's that kind of thing. Are you working? Yeah, you actually are, but because you love it so much, it doesn't feel like work. So I would say you should sort of ask yourself or think about, what do you really enjoy and what career is most closely connected to that. Yeah. So if you can work hard, if you love it, the trick is figuring out what is it that you love to do, right? That's the career that you should pick. Even if it doesn't necessarily the biggest financial gain, because of course money's important, right? But if you are working only for the money and you actually hate what you're doing, you'll be miserable and it's probably not going to be sustainable in the long run. Whereas if you love what you're doing, you can work very, very hard at it for a very long time. And I think you're more likely to be successful in that scenario than if you actually hate going to work every day. Right? We need I think question that was asked. And so a follow-up question about like, would money come with it? Because it's not a career if there's no money, right? The sort of bigger thing is, if you had a career option in front of you that you were guaranteed was going to provide money that would allow you to be financially independent, but you hated that thing, would it be worth it? Right? Like, let's take law school for an example, what it might be in your case, but say the idea of going to law school and being a lawyer working 80 hours a week sounds awful, but you, although I hear that that's not so true anymore, confident that you could get a job, but you'd be miserable. Is that how you want to live your life? Right? And the cards here are saying like, your concern, your method for choosing the career should be, what do you love? Because if you do what you love, then even if you're working 80 hours a week, if you love it, well, then you'll be happy. So you ask, I already know what I love, because sometimes you need to try things before you know you like it. That's 100% true. I would say think about general fields, right? Like, do you love working with people alone? That would be something to consider. Do you like a fast-paced work environment, or something where you can be a little more introspective and slower with things? And then think about what kind of careers would match up with that, right? And of course, you know your own personality the best. So you'd want to think about what might fit best with what you like to do. Something you might ask yourself is like, already do each day? If you had a day free with no responsibilities, what would you do? And then, is there any career that is at all close to, for example, I love reading, right? I have nothing to do one day, I might spend a good portion of that day reading. And so I chose, right? Because that's something that I already know that and so You would travel. Okay. So maybe there's an element of travel your career. And you also love researching. So what if you were working in if you liked writing, you could do like travel writing, that kind of thing. But, think about what are the things you already love anyway. You won't mind if you're working, love doing them. And then that's sustainable, right? Like if you already love doing it, you can do it for the rest of your life. Based exclusively on money, you might 2 or 5 or 10 years and then realize you're miserable and to something else anyways, right? YouTube is telling me my connection is unstable. Let's see if it is corrected. Okay, looks like it's back. Okay, so my suggestion to you would be figure out what are some concrete options and identify what those are. And then maybe in a future live stream, if you pick like, I don't know, maybe you want to, do they have travel agents anymore? I don't think so. Well, you say like health stuff. So maybe a health career is an option. And then maybe something to do with travel is another option. Look at like what some possible careers could be in those fields. And then we could read for, we could do a reading to like compare them, right? And the more specific you are, then like the more precise the readings can be. And of course, they might require training, like education too, depending on like if you wanted to go into a health career, that might mean you need to get a degree or a certificate or something first, right? Okay, so that was Starry Night's reading. And so next up is Diamond Girl. If you're here, Diamond Girl, I can read for you. And right now the list is closed. And I think, let's see, how long have I been streaming? Almost 2 hours. So I think Diamond Girl is going to be my last reading of the night or afternoon, whatever this is. But I would be happy to read for you, Bukal, in a future live stream. I am, of course, also available for paid private readings, and you can check out my Linktree link for more information about those. It's in the video description. You can also email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. Okay, so Diamond Girl, hello, and you want to know what's coming towards me in love in the near future. All right. Bye, Book. I'll see you next time. Okay, what's coming towards Diamond Girl in love in the near future? Let's see. The Star. Nine Swords. Eight Batons. Okay. So, other than a specific person, seeing the string of cards end with the eight batons, this suggests a social group, right? I see eights. Eights are groups of people, and the batons, right? It's like a social group who they're competing or they're cooperating, like maybe working together or playing games or that kind of thing, right? And so I wonder, because of course the big card in the middle is the Nine of Swords, which is sort of blocking the way between you, the Star, and this group of people, right? Other people out in the world. And so often the Nine of Swords can show up as anxiety. And so I would sort of want to ask if you feel that there might be a way in which you feel vulnerable or overly open in a way that makes you anxious around people, right? Because to get at your specific question of what's coming towards you in love in the near future, it's sort of saying less that something's coming towards you and that you need to find a way to move towards others, if that makes sense, right? That there's these nine swords sort of blocking you off from others. And so something is being prevented from coming towards you by all of these, by what I think is likely anxiety, right? It can also be regrets or troubling change that you have been having to go through, that kind of thing. But seeing it next to the Star, you know, this beautiful person is unclothed, right? And so she's vulnerable and alone, right? She's solitary, not necessarily having a bad time. I mean, I think she's like taking a bath or hanging out in the beautiful clear evening sky, and there's a bird in the tree. Like, this is nice. This is really nice, potentially. But if she's staying alone like this because of fear, because of anxiety, because she doesn't want to get hurt, that might be preventing her from building relationships with other people, right? And so this is sort of suggesting, like, is there something coming towards you? It can't, right? It can't right now, because it's being sort of blocked, right? And so you have, I would think, given you're being represented by the Star card, you have a lot to give others, but in being open to that and being vulnerable, you might be blocked off from others through the anxiety or fear that causes, right? With the star too, we can think about being guided or inspired, but think about the way that the stars can be used for navigation, like to make a plan or to make a map for you to act in such a way that you're open to possibilities in love, right? So it's kind of, the cards are kind of saying right now you need to act as opposed to waiting for something to come to you, if that makes sense. Sounds like it does. Okay, good. Why don't we look at the card? It's the Four of Batons. And so the surprise card is, the underlying energy, the thing in the margin. And with Four Batons, it's things staying the same, right? It's four is stable, right? But it can be so stable that it's boring or stodgy. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't get smaller. It doesn't get bigger, right? And so there may be a need to make this so that you are more open to love. Yeah. And I think the star, not just the figure, but the star itself is, think about making a plan for yourself. Like if you want to meet someone, where could that feasibly happen? How can you get to that place? How can you spend time in that place, whether it's in like online might be? How could you organize your life in such a way that you're going to meet people that might be potential partners, right? Think about needing to guide yourself or find something to guide you, people. And doing that little by little could be a way of easing any trouble or anxiety that you've got, to work through it eventually so that you can make a change and be in a social group, right? Out there in the world, as opposed to, alone under the star. And again, that's assuming that that's what you want, which I think is implied by your question, right? Because your question is what's coming towards me in love in the near future implies you want someone to love, right? And to love you back, right? But something else to consider is like in the moment, if you're single, this isn't such a bad way to be. But if you are the star, it shouldn't be because you're afraid. It should be because you want to be the star, right? If you're alone under the stars, it should be because that's what's best for you and not because you feel like you have to be that way, right? So I would say if you're working on your fears, keep doing that, right? Be hopeful. That's the other thing. The star is, of course, it's cliche, but the star is about trust and hope and guidance, right? Think of the North Star. If you keep following it, you will find your way home. Yeah. Okay. Well, that puts us at the 2-hour mark, which is what I had planned on doing today, a 2-hour live stream. And I'm just at 2 hours. I'm happy with that. I know I wasn't able to read for everybody, but I hope that those of you whom I missed with the live stream, I'd be happy to read for you there. Available as well for paid private readings. You can check out the Linktree link in the video description for more information. You're also welcome to email me at tarot.hermit@gmail.com to set up a paid private reading. I also do pre-recorded audio readings for those of you who might be interested in that. And so that will do it for today. As I said at the top of the video, I am traveling beginning tomorrow, so my live streams might be for the next 6 weeks or so. Here I will be back, and I hope to live stream as I am traveling, but it will depend on my having quiet space and good internet in order to do that. All right, that'll do it for today. Thank you all for letting me read for you. Those of you whom I read for today, thanks for being kind to one another in the comments, in the chat section, that is. And I look forward to seeing you next. Take care of yourselves, be well, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.